Men or women that have had with a man with an abnormally large or abnormally small. What was the experience like? My husband was small. It never mattered. It was great and made BJ's much easier. He passed years back. I began dating another guy and he was long and decently thick. I could hardly walk. He had to be careful for a long time because it was painful. I got used to it. He wasn't as attentive as my husband, so it wasn't as good overall. BJ's were exhausting and I gagged a lot even with taking precautions with my hand. Overall, I enjoyed both extremes. I loved them and that's what mattered mostly. I lost my virginity to someone 9. He was the epitome of being big doesn't make you good in bed. Didn't try to turn me on. Didn't do anything but jackhammer until he finished. Couldn't even find my C the one time he ever tried. All I really remember about it is the overwhelming, displeasurable pain of having him punch my cervix with his. Being with both. Large. Like being repeatedly gut punched because the dude had no idea what he was doing. I'm pretty sure childbirth was less traumatic on my cervix. I am not a size queen. Small. Actually really good. He had the plus of being relatively girthy, and he knew how to work with what he had. It wasn't deep, but that didn't detract from anything. The angle he got was great for more C stimulation, which was great. Abnormally large fellow dislodged my IUD, was temporarily crippled by the pain and had to go to the doctors to make sure it hadn't perforated my uterus. Wasn't exactly what I'd describe as fun. Had a couple hookups with a guy who was about the same size as my index finger. We only did BJ's, but damn, it was like someone trying to make me throw up by sticking their finger down my throat. During it felt great, I guess because of the adrenaline, but afterwards I was doubled over in pain. It felt like my cervix had been drop-kicked by Chuck Norris. Above average can be absolutely incredible, especially in certain positions. That is until your cervix gets hit. Was with a smaller dude. Like others here have said, felt nothing. Pretty sure most of the action was him grinding against my inner thigh. We were young, and didn't really know what else to do outside of just basic. Nowadays I would ask for more attention because regardless of size, you can still have good times if there's other foreplay and fulfillment involved. And I would assume most men go crazy at the thought of a woman giving them more info about what they want so the good times can roll for both parties. He was a good dude and an attentive boyfriend. We broke up due to being long distance. I don't regret it, and I'd never make fun of a guy for the size of their schlong. It's not the that makes the man. It's the willingness to be an open and loving partner. Large. Hurts. Like hell. I was with a guy who wasn't vert well endowed. We were fooling around and he asked for a hand job. I went to put my hand around and found that my hand was larger than him, fully erect. Similar to many others, couldn't feel it when he put it in either. A girl once told me that a limo is impressive but it's not that fun to drive and is especially hard to park. A regular sedan might be less impressive but much more fun to drive, and you can park almost anywhere. So I asked, how do you feel about hatchbacks? At 8, it was definitely more painful than pleasurable. He used his size as a reason to not really try in bed. He never gave me opportunity to warm up. And even though I thoroughly enjoy super rough stuff, he just thought ramming it into me over and over was the way to go. Lack of warm-up and him just thrusting hard like no tomorrow left me sore and angry. Not the good kind of sore, either. My cervix hated me when I was with him. A coworker of mine was talking about sleeping with a guy who was almost the size of her Comcast television remote. For visual reference, this is appropriate because Comcast is definitely a big prick. Anyway, she said she tentatively touched it like Indiana Jones with the golden idol, and jiggled it about experimentally. It was so visually striking and distinctive that she wouldn't have been surprised if it had talked or sang a song. In the end, she incredulously asked him what he was planning on doing with that and had to frankly tell him she didn't think that was going to happen. Had to tell him to stop about halfway in. Not fun when terrified of injury. We were in our 20s. He had never done it before. He met a woman who could enjoy all he had to offer 26 centimeters not long after our attempt, and FB says they're still together over a decade later. I don't even know if what we did qualifies as. He looked at me with a terrified, "Are you okay?" look on his face and was met with my freaked out expression. Fun to look at, scary to experience. I was with a dude who had a peen like a large deodorant can. One night we were doing the dance of the beast with two backs, and he must have bashed my cervix one time too many and I began to faint. I realized what was happening and tried to make it to the bathroom, not sure why. I thought I'd been pretty speedy, but turns out he had to shepherd me along the 5 meters corridor because I was all over the place, literally bouncing off the walls. I didn't even know he'd followed me. My roommate came out of her room to find me with no clothes, passed out on the toilet with my panicking boyfriend trying to bring me round. At about 1 a.m., I eventually came round and kept frantically asking him to bring me my slip. He didn't understand. Bring me my slip. My slip. I was frantically trying to cover my bits and bobs with my hands to maintain some level of dignity. I wanted my nightie and had never called it my slip in all my days. I was so confused. Bit of advice here, lads. Either if you are truly blessed, lacking in length, or just about right, go down on the lady first and get her rocks off before you go working your way in. After that, if it's big, you'll fit the gig. If it's small, it won't matter at all. My ex was very huge. BJs were fun, but after a while it became a problem because we couldn't do certain positions like cowgirl, etc. And sometimes if he thrusted in a bad angle he would impale my cervix and I would be in pain. Basically, the novelty wore off and I wish he was a bit smaller. My shortest ex was actually the largest. I don't know an exact size, but he had a very wide girth and was still decently long. We would have to use the toys on me first, because it was thinner, in order to stretch me out enough that he would fit without hurting me. At the time, I thought it was really good. But now I'm with the guy that I know I'm going to spend my life with, and turns out the big guy wasn't as good as I thought. Now boyfriend is still decently long as well, so I'm a happy girl. Gay guy here. I was the top in this situation, but the guy the first was with was unbelievably huge. Like, this thing was incredibly girthy and heavy. Even when he was fully hard, it just hung down. When he was riding on top, he would just slap my stomach, leaving a red D print afterwards. I thought I was generously well off, but this guy passed me by a long shot. Maybe 8 inches in length but about 1.5 inches thick. It hurt my jaw, and almost dislocated it more than once. But it was a lot of fun, and I felt proud when I fit all of it in. We are all so proud of you, Dad. Was with a guy that was 3-ish, maybe less. I genuinely didn't care and look back on it at times as one of the better experiences I had, because he actually cared about how I felt and he looked at me like I was the most beautiful girl in the world. I don't know for sure, but I got the impression he was a bit new to the game. I would 10 out of 10 do it with someone that was on the smaller side again. It helps that I have a shorter, smaller V. Even average size can feel pretty big to me. Had my first time with a guy that insisted he was 6 inches. But my best guess would be 3 inches, and even that seems generous. I didn't feel a thing. Because I was just an innocent little 14-year-old who hadn't so much as seen videos of this, I asked him, "Is it in yet?" which I have since learned is a phrase guys don't like to hear. He insisted I must be lying about being new, and that I must sleep around because I didn't bleed and wasn't uncomfortable. In general, he was a pretty bad guy, and even the decision to go for it that day was one I didn't have much say in.